My name is Rodney P. I was just going to have a talk, but actually I think maybe we should start by watching this video.
First on to the streetwise subculture of hip-hop and rap music.
Posse's a group of people that enjoy rap or hip-hop. The rapper has to have a posse to back him up.
Service presents.
This is not.
Boy, I want you to listen to the way I strung her. I tell them about the raddies and the baddies all the manner. Who roll thick and quick to flip like Bruce Banner. I check my grammar. The girls in Japan love the slang. And the ones in Manhattan, they like the chatting, so it's easy spreading. The Chinese girlies ask me, how's life in London? And in New York, the talk is always, how's life in London? And all my honeys in a Rari ask me, how's life in London? What you tell them? I tell them as a youth, I used to stun them. And I used to be in love with that hung Carolina. Her daddy was from Jamaica and
Well, this is MC Bionic, otherwise known as Jeff, but he does look a bit more bionic.
I'm a reggae MC.
A reggae MC, and you do rapping.
Yeah.
I'm like a newspaper, known as a daily roughneck, and I'm the prime suspect when I'm in the vicinity of a robbery. Granny's in rock body.
Lyrics, tell us about that, man.
I do it in a rap style, but in a yardie accent. And I'd use my own Cockney accent. I don't rap in American accent or nothing. That's what's keeping English people back.
Come on! All I wanna do is live like the other rough dude. Instead of sitting home and voila!
We did a lot of work for this thing. For me coming out with a UK accent, it was against the grain and wasn't accepted. We had to make big pushes for that to be accepted because it was all about, it's hip-hop, it's supposed to be American. We were swampers, we don't want to hear that UK shit because we had English accents talking about local stuff.
From I was young, I made a wage, now my vibe is 20 years plus 5 and paid, I paid, only produced to this.
See, I was 25 in this video, I'm 50 years old now.
Yo, how you doing, man? Nice, man.
Sipo with the beat me with the yard style verse, and I'm proud to say to the crowd we were the first.
The first international artist ever on our show was thanks to Stretch. He invited the London posse.
Whoa.
I know bits and bobs though. I know about the Rodney P's, you know what I'm saying? London posse.
Put a mic, I kill a ton of murder. I'll walk up in a paper to Iron shots in a bark at air top. You don't know that? On Tuesday about the freaks that I rush it. Cat to be as I book, look, I even speak Russian, but it's true that you do get them sexies that sweet as, but there's a set of wench representing the street trash I loud them. We are gonna tell you about the bad boy there. If it no return to eat who saying it's called London posse. We're gonna tell you about the one to a fight. Got you them gone. Money man. Boom. They see you living, take they lick it and they're long gone. Wait, get stomped on. Rock by Long John. Silver could be a mother, could I say tracker. Could be a robber, a hitman or computer hacker. Could be a earner. You call them marathon. Couple gold rings and a fat piece to earn a top. Bucky's a brandished in a raid. Could have night, it could have fade. Bang got sprayed, the pound was paid. This in the airways on the police receiver. Cause every message got the money mad fever. Money mad, money mad. City,
I have many other videos I could have shown, but that's just a little example of where I came into the industry. 1987, we put out our first record, a record called London Posse, and like I said, we're credited as being the first to bring that UK hip-hop accent. Before we came out, everyone, bar no one, rapped with a fake American accent, including me when I was young. Like, I came up from that school too. But at a point, we were lucky enough to be asked to go on tour with a band called Big Audio Dynamite, which I don't know how rock influenced any of you are, but there was a band called The Clash that was a huge band back in the day. And when they split up, one of the members, the guitarist, Mick Jones, he went away and formed a new band called Big Audio Dynamite alongside a guy named Don Letts. And Don Letts was a filmmaker and he was very influential within the punk scene. He's a Rasta, got long locks down his back, but he's a very influential guy musically and culturally. They formed a new band called Big Audio Dynamite, and they asked us as young kids to come on tour with them. And at the time, we didn't even have the name London Posse. After we had completed that tour, They were going to New York to continue the tour, and we decided as you know, energized and enthusiastic young men that we're going too. So we went to New York, and you quickly discover that rapping to Americans with a fake American accent is a really stupid idea. It's a really stupid idea. And you also discover that when you speak to American people as a young black English person with a Cockney accent, they lose their minds. They find that amazing. Like when you would say stuff like, excuse me, mate, where's the local shop? Where can I get a packet of Rizla from? They'd be amazed at that shit. So it quickly became apparent that we're doing something wrong here, you know? At the time in the UK, having grown up around sound system culture, which was the norm, everyone I knew grew up around sound system culture. We were all box boys. We all had our local sound system that we followed. Reggae music was the staple. West Indian culture, West Indian black culture was the staple. Now it's a lot more diverse. Now we have a lot more Afrobeat and different kinds of black music influencing the attitudes. But back then, Jamaica and reggae music was the dominant culture. So within dancehall culture in the UK at that time, it already existed that there were sound systems, young black British sound systems who were saying we're black and we love reggae music, but we're not from Jamaica. So when we do this dancehall stuff, we have to do it in a way that represents us. People like Smiley Culture and Asher Senator and Tipper Irie. Smiley Culture, someone who had a really big hit in the UK with a song called Cockney Translator and Police Officer.
The Cockney Translation. Cockney is not a language, it is only a slang and was originated, so in England. The first place it was used was over East London. It was respect for the different style pronunciation, but it wasn't really used by any.
But they had this mentality as opposed to the traditional Jamaican sound systems like Coxsone or Jashaka, who were very much Jamaican sound systems in the UK. They had the attitude that we're going to do things different. And us as fans of those dancehall sounds like Saxon, like Young Lion, we took that mentality and applied it to hip hop. So now we're making hip hop reggae music because that's what we knew. And initially, we weren't overly welcomed within the scene. We were part of the scene. I've been part of the hip hop scene since 1982. So when it was all about breakdancing and body popping and graffiti and all of that stuff, I was already part of the scene. But when we started making music, we came from a different angle and it wasn't universally accepted. It wasn't like everyone said, oh yeah, rapping in English accents, that makes sense, let's all do that. It took years for that to become the norm, but eventually, you know, we were proved right and everyone else was wrong. So, you know, that was the journey, how I began my career within the industry and as an artist. Over the years, like I said, I've worn a lot of different hats. Because of people knowing me from music, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of different stuff. I've been a radio presenter, I've been a documentary filmmaker. I love hip hop. I love everything it stands for. I love its art, its beauty, its power. And I love its ability to transform people's lives, people like me. You know, after London Posse finished as a group around 92, 93, around that time. And I continued as a solo artist. And at that time, you know, UK hip hop was real hard work. You had to love it. And I keep saying UK hip hop because I mean UK hip hop as a culture rather than the rap music that's popular now. Because I came from a culture that was about body popping, breakdancing, graffiti, street dress, knowledge. All of these things were the culture that I grew up in. At a point, rap music became a commodity that was the easiest to sell and was sucked out of the culture and became the forefront. So now they call it hip hop music, but actually it's rap music, which was part of hip hop as a culture, you know? So, like I say, I continued within the UK hip hop scene and it was hard work. This predates the internet, this predates mobile phones, it predates Channel U and you know, these YouTube channels that are now accessible and artists can find themselves an audience around the world. It wasn't like that for us then. It was, you had to love it, you know? But thankfully as an artist, I was able to transfer my hustle into other things. So when One Extra started, I was lucky enough alongside my DJ friend DJ Skits to be invited to be one of the DJs on the original One Extra. So the first record that was ever played on One Extra, that the opening record was a record that was produced by me and Skits, featuring Roots Maneuver, Gemma Fox and Beverly Knight, who are all names you can go back and look up. They were all very influential artists at that time. So I did 5 years as a radio DJ on 1Xtra while continuing my music career. I had an independent label that I'd set up alongside another UK label called Low Life. I had a label called Rhythm Killer Records, and I was releasing music through there. I put out an album through there. I also put out an album for Kalashnikov, who's another big UK hip-hop artist, if you care to look. He's definitely highly regarded as a lyricist and an MC. So yeah, I did 5 years as a radio DJ, all the while continuing the struggle as a hip-hop artist, because it was a struggle. I need to stress that. We weren't driving around in Bentleys and Lamborghinis. We didn't have Rolexes and $100,000 chains. That really wasn't, the ground didn't look like that back in the day. In fact, that lifestyle, which a lot of the new artists now have achieved, is actually quite new within UK urban music across the board, regardless if it's rap or trap or drill or grime or R&B or soul or whatever it is you banner you're under. That level of success is quite new, because the UK was always, considered lesser to our American cousin, So again, I'd say you have to love it.
Everyone knows the story of Radio Caroline and the swinging 60s DJs whose rebellious buccaneering on the high seas led to the birth of Radio 1.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the exciting new sound of Radio 1.
But there's another pirate radio story. A story you don't know. One that played out on the rooftops of inner city Britain in the Thatcher years.
Doesn't matter who you are. If you can build up a fortune to yourself, jolly good luck to you. Because in doing so, you will help to create jobs for others.
This is the story of how a whole musical culture was ignored by legal radio. And how people who were disregarded and dismissed had to break the law for their music and their voice to be heard.
So before there was the internet in the UK, there was pirate radio, which is something I don't think it ever existed in the same way anywhere else. It was a very UK phenomenon, but extremely, extremely important. A lot of the leading lights that you hear about now within the urban music scene started their careers within pirate radio. So people like Trevor Nelson, people like Tim Westwood, Norman J, Jazzy B from Soul to Soul, pretty much anyone you could talk about from that generation. They started their careers within pirate radio. That was our lifeline. That was our internet, and that was our way of hearing this music that we didn't have access to, because Radio 1 or Capital Radio, commercial radio, weren't going nowhere near black music, nowhere near it. They wouldn't touch it. It was very pop on the radio. So to hear anything culturally relevant, you had to tune into pirate radio. It was the pirate radio that forced commercial radio to take a different stance and to change its position, because they were so successful, So through the back of doing radio, I was asked to do these documentaries. So we did one called The Hip Hop World News, like I said. We did The Last Pirates, and I did one called The Story of Grime, which kind of charted the journey of grime from early sound system culture through UK hip hop, through UK garage and drum and bass into grime, and how the dots connect, because they do connect. And you can find all of those. I have a website, rkpprime.com, little ad. So you can go and check there. Those are the only places you can see those documentaries now. We actually just finished a new documentary about UK funk and soul from the 80s, which also plays a part in this story. So look out for that. That'll be coming soon on BBC 4. So yeah, I've worn all of these different heads. And for me, like I've said, it's always been a struggle, but thankfully I've been someone that's been here consistently. So I've always been recognized by all of these scenes. Like the leading lights with, not so much the young guys now, but the leading lights within the drum and bass scene, the garage scene, the early grime scene, all of those guys would know me. So that gave me the opportunity to step out and do other things. And this is one of those other things. I get the opportunity to come and speak to people like you about what it is we do and what we've done. I don't really want to just sit here just waffling about what I've done and blowing my own horn. I'm the man. But really, it's for you guys. I'm really here to offer myself to you guys who are studying here at Point Blank, this amazing facility. I must say, you are some lucky young people to have this space to come into and use. But really, I'm here to facilitate for you. So if there's anything you'd like to know or any questions you'd like to ask, now's not the time to be shy. Like, use me any way you like, and ask whatever you'd like.
What would you sort of say to someone who's trying to break the industry now in any genre? What would be your sort of advice for them, especially if they were trying to do something that wasn't widely accepted, like rapping in a British voice?
Yeah. I would always say try to bring something unique about you to the table, because whatever that is, it's yours, you know? And I think if you're going to find an audience that really plug in and tune into you, that's what it's going to be that they love the most. As an artist, I always felt it's important that we do something different to everybody else. And that simple thing was, do me, you know? I'm not going to come out and pretend to be the most road guy. I'm not going to pretend to be Mr. Loverman. I'm not going to pretend to be the most ragamuffin. I'm not going to pretend to be anything. I'm just going to represent who I am in the music and visually. And luckily enough for me, that's worked. And I would say to any young artist coming out, you know, if you're going to find an audience, that would be the best way to do it. Again, like I say, it seems like a lot of young people are going the complete opposite direction now, and everyone is happy to sound similar to each other. But I've never advocated for that.
That documentary that you showed us there, and a lot of London Posse records, it seems like you've got samples in the back of the records that you're rapping over. Have you got any stories of like sample clearance that...
It was something that, you know, a lot of early hip-hop kind of brought to the forefront. There was a lot of successful early hip-hop records that were just laden with samples. And before that, the music industry hadn't really had to deal with it, you know? So because of the success of hip-hop in the early days, and we were using other people's music a lot of the time, new rules came in. And that definitely has affected the sound of hip-hop going forward. There's a reason so much more hip-hop music is now studio-based and synthesizer-based, you know, less samples, because they cost so much money. And sometimes you can get into really big trouble. There's a lot of really successful records that the artist hasn't really made much money from, because the person who owned the sample came and took it all back. Someone like, if you think about Puff Daddy, I'll Be Missing You, the song he made when Biggie Smalls died, which was a huge international hit, #1 in so many countries. Puff Daddy didn't make no money for that, because Sting came and claimed his money for his sample. That's why Sting was happy to appear with Puff Daddy at the Grammys, because he's taking all the money home, you know? Those things definitely have affected artists over the years, and why there's so many more artists now who just stay clear of samples.
So what are your thoughts on making music locationally? Do you, especially when trying to reach an international audience, do you believe that you can live anywhere and become famous all around the world, or do you believe that you should live somewhere specific to your genre?
Nah,
or with the streaming you can,
I think you could do anything from anywhere. I do think that local scenes are very important to building new sounds and taking music in new directions. Like Grime was never going to come from anywhere else but the UK. That music couldn't have existed anywhere but here, and the elements that made it bred it here. But that doesn't mean it has to stay here. Like the drill music I know, the first time I heard about drill music, it was from Chicago. It wasn't from the UK. I did like this new UK stuff, and I'm pretty sure these UK guys were affected by what Chief Keef and those guys were doing. Now you've got drill in Australia, you've got drill in Russia. I was in India last year. They have a drill scene in India, like, which is amazing, but it exists. But it has their own slant on it. It has their own slant on it, and I think it's always important to, like I said earlier, bring something to the table. Don't just copy what you hear. I think the drill scene in England is very different from the drill scene in America. They have a lot of the same lyric patterns, but when we started out in hip hop, we also used the same slang. We just copied what we heard. Now, these individual scenes all bring their own shit to the table, which means that the drill scene from Chicago may have been huge, but actually the drill scene from the UK may possibly be bigger, because they brought something else to the table. One day the drill scene from India may be the biggest in the world, because people like what they bring to the table. So I think, you know, local elements are important. Don't be afraid to represent where you come from and who you are and how you talk. But I don't think you should limit yourself to saying, well, I'm from here and my thing's just for this. You know, you have in this day and time, you have the ability to reach the whole world. So the whole world is now your audience. And don't be afraid to feed them. Feed them, let them enjoy the thing, why not?
So how crucial it was to be a part of the group or the band when you started, and then how you think it is now really important to be, or you can be on your own? Because
as an artist, you mean?
Yeah, as an artist, or you mean as a producer as well? Because obviously, if you look at the big labels and stuff, I mean, they've got a whole team, and you do have to know how to build up a team. So, I guess I would have 2 questions: how do you think it is important to be in a team now, to be as an artist or the producer, and the second question is, what do you think of the now generation when you've got like single people doing everything in the bed, as you said, and then becoming great pop artists, and where do they get into the teams, or do they stay by themselves?
I'll tell you what I think. Well, I think you've never heard of no single artist that's made it all by themselves. You may have heard of a single artist that started his career in his bedroom, but once he took it to that other level, he had to surround himself with people who knew what they were doing and could help facilitate his ideas. There's no such thing as making it on your own. That's a myth. That's a myth. So, a lot of these artists now, when they come into labels, they come in with their team. These are my guys, and we're going to come in and do our thing because we've already shown that we can. We've already got all of these streams. We've already had all this success. If you don't want to deal with us, we'll just go away and do it by ourselves. And so labels have to recognize that, there are lots of strong artists doing their own thing. But when I say doing their own thing, I don't mean doing it by themselves. Like, there's strong UK management teams, there's strong UK marketing teams, strong UK PR teams that are around these artists that you may have never heard of. And not everyone wants to be in front of the camera. Not everyone wants that fame and that limelight. But there's lots of young entrepreneurs getting extremely rich within the music industry in the UK right now by doing their jobs, playing their positions, and doing it really well. Working out marketing strategies and PR strategies, and dealing with agents and promoters and setting up, tours and all of this stuff that doesn't necessarily bring you the limelight, but can absolutely bring you that check. And also remember, there's lots of people who are out here struggling who just haven't been able to take that extra step yet because they're missing that one piece from their team. So don't never feel like an artist who did it by themselves, because you don't. You need to really think about the people that you're going to surround yourself with, because picking a bad team can fuck your whole career up, and picking the right team can get you over a bridge. Like we say, there may be lots of artists that you think, well, they're not that good. How did they get so far? Their fucking team got them there. That's the reality. So really, one of the strongest things I want you to take away from this talk we've had today is that you need to think about the people you surround yourself with. Because if you surround yourself with the wrong people, no matter how good you are or how good you think you are, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. That's so important. It's not, your singular talent is not going to be enough to push you over the edge. Absolutely not.
All right. So my question kind of...
This one's going to be beeping now. I can feel it coming. Go ahead.
Don't get disappointed. So my question kind of adds on to our good friends over here about having a team. Now, I've been working with music for 5 years, 6 years maybe, and I've come across a lot of people that just want everything to be made by themselves. I'm talking their beats, like you said, their vocals, but also other stuff. Like, they want that their cover art has to be made by themselves. They want to have mastered their tracks by themselves. They're
just creating headaches for themselves.
Exactly, and they want to manage themselves as well. And I've had debates about this with other people. And you mentioned that without a team, you're not going to get that far. Do you think that those sorts of people, I'm not going to badmouth them, but do you think they need a bit of an ego check? Do they need to jump over their own shadow if they want to truly successfully?
I would say yes. I would absolutely say yes. I mean, and sometimes people have been burnt, and then you get burnt and you're like, well, I can't trust none of these motherfuckers, so let me just keep it to myself. Yeah. But that's a self-defeating kind of mentality. You can't let other people's fuckery turn you into a fuckery dude, Yeah. Like, you always have to be prepared to go back out into the world and deal with people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
can't
like
just be a hermit.
Yeah, people would say someone like Kanye West. He's an egomaniac, he this, that. But I bet you Kanye West has got the most amazing team of people around him. Like, so no matter what the public image of Kanye West may be, the team behind him is strong and keeps his name in the forefront. Like Kanye, he may be a dickhead. He may well be a dickhead. In fact, I've met him a few times. He's a bit of a dickhead. But, you know, you can't dispute his talent, and you can't dispute the fact that whoever's bringing him to the marketplace is doing a fantastic job, you know? But I guarantee you, he's not having all of those conversations by himself. And a lot of the times when he steps on people's toes and pisses people off, it's the people in his team who then go and clean up the mess. You know what I mean?
Not bad. Not bad. Good for you, team of Kanye.
You know, they're man are working hard, boy, I tell you.
With the shit he pulls, they must be doing overtime.
Indeed. Within management and all of that kind of stuff, like there's different things. You need someone who can sometimes say to you, shut the fuck up, just trust me. And you need to be prepared to trust that person. So trust is important. But as an artist, I would say never compromise on what you actually want. You need to be able to get, you know, what you envision in your head and what you feel in your spirit. Someone needs to be able to bring that to life for you. And if they can't, then you're dealing with the wrong person. Unless it's someone who can say to you, you know what you're feeling and you know what you're thinking, I can bring a better version for you. And they'll go away and do that. Then you can say, I got this dude, and my dude is really like, you know what I mean? That's how you pick your team. If you're picking a team saying, well, you know, I wanted it to sound like this, and he couldn't quite find the sound, but I'm happy with that. Nah, man, you need to push harder. You need to get what you want out of that shit. But people need to provide you with what you need, without you being a dickhead about it. You know what I mean? That's what it is. But don't compromise. Don't ever compromise. Other artists, don't compromise. The most successful artists in the world don't compromise their shit. They have their vision and they see that shit through. And they're also able to take good advice. You know what I mean? Thank you. Nice one. Cool.